Hey, welcome back. I'm Albert, and today I'm going to show you something really fun to do in Stable Diffusion, namely make maps like this. You can do anything you want, anything your imagination comes up with. I did something piratey today, some islands in the ocean, but you can use this method to make fantasy maps for D&D rounds, for example, or if you're writing a fantasy novel. With this method, you can do pretty much anything you set your mind to. So without further ado, I'm going to show you exactly how that's done. Have fun. Now, of course, you're going to need an installation of Stable Diffusion. I'm running it locally on my RTX 2070 Super graphics card, but you can also use one of the many online services like Dream Studio, whatever works for you, because what I'm explaining here will work in any version of Stable Diffusion. For a couple options, just click the link in the description and find what works best. Now, the most important part for making maps is actually the prompt. So slight variations in the prompt I found will give you drastically different results. And I've figured out some tips that could work well for you. Now, I'm just going to start entering those. So fantasy, I guess because fantasy books and such have a lot of maps, works well. So I'm going to start with fantasy. Then parchment gives the background paper a really nice parchment texture, right? Like a good beige color and aging. So I put that in. And next I'm going to enter map. Now, sometimes, even though I've entered map, my results weren't maps. So I've decided to put that into parentheses. And in my UI, I can set in the settings that I want that to make the results more pronounced, to pay more attention to that. So if I check this checkbox, use text in parentheses to make model pay more attention to text, right? That's going to work. And brackets to make it pay less attention. That's why there's a big difference there. So once we've done that, we enter what we want. So today I want like a nice piratey map of islands and ocean. So I'm going to enter islands, and I found that the word magical actually makes them nicer, like a little more mystical, a little more funky. So I'm going to do magical islands. But if you want something else, you can change that to wooded forest and trees, or desert or mountain range, right? And next I want it to look kind of, high quality. So I'm going to do elegant. And I want oceans, right? I want waves. So I'm going to do ocean, sea, waves. And now just some more description, right? Cartography helps it look like a map. It's going to tell the AI to really search its database for maps and stuff. Make it vintage, get the aging better. Now for good shading, I found that crosshatch works well, right? So crosshatch is a type of, it is a brand. So if I do crosshatch shading, it gives me this style that I like from old maps, right? So that's what I wanted with that word. And just because I'm doing a pirate map specifically, I'm going to do seafaring and pirate ships. And now what we can also add is something like navigation, right? If we want that, just give it more, just scream map at it until it understands. Now, if you just click generate on this, there is a pretty high chance that you would get a world map with recognizable continents. We don't want that, right? We want a new map, some magical islands or whatever. Now, if we're not using image to image and giving it the look of the map we want, I'm going to show you that later, we need to discourage it from using real maps and just, drawing us the world again. So that's what the negative prompt is for. And I found that just entering that could help, right? Just the continents, America, Europe, Africa, Asia, Australia, just tell it to stray away from any real maps. And a lot of maps obviously have words, which AI image generators famously are not good at. So I've also entered words, text. We don't want a frame around it either. We don't want it hanging on a wall, right? So that obviously doesn't help all the time because it doesn't really know what words are, but it does discourage it a tiny bit, I've noticed. And if we want, you can also add like photographs, so we don't have any photos or anything realistic in there. We don't want to render, that kind of thing. Now, sampling steps 20 is good for gauging if our prompt is working well. So we can leave it at that at first, turn up the batch count a little bit, and the sampling method Euler A is just fine. We can stick with that. And click generate. All right, so these are already some pretty great results. We see some islands and ocean, a totally messed up compass. These are pretty cool, right? So we are getting what we want. They're not quite as colorful as I want, so maybe we can change something in the prompt a little bit for that. Just adjust until you see what you like. What I can also do, right, is just add some colorful into the prompt. That might make it like a little too whimsical. We will see, and just remove some stuff maybe from this. So render, for example, could remove some colors. We don't really need to detract it from that. And just run it again, maybe with higher sampling steps, because it is already pretty close to what we want. Let's go 50. And see, the colorful did actually work. It didn't make it too colorful. And we have some pretty nice islands here. There are some ship rocks in here. I suppose that's what the pirate ships did. But all in all, it's a pretty cool look. I like the mountains. I like all this. This is a pretty neat one. It has a lot of decoration here, which is kind of neat if we could discern what it's supposed to be. This one's more classic. And this one has inverted the ocean and islands, which is always fun when that happens. So this one is actually the most detailed, and I actually like this decorative coat of arms here. So if we could work on that, that's kind of nice. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to pick one of these and clean it up in image to image. So let's take this prompt, copy it, and send to image, or do it manually, depending on what installation you have. Just put that in there. And I just want some variations of this. Maybe we can make the islands more pronounced. See what happens. Turn up the sampling steps to 50 again, and just give me 6 different options of that. The denoising strength I'm going to turn down a little because I do like the look of this a lot, to 0.5. Really, really cool. So now we have plenty of options to choose from. This one doesn't really have very defined islands, so I don't love that. This one I like the rocks. Some of the rocks are cool. I'm going to take some of these rocks, and that's a cool idea that it turned that coat of arms into a ship. Otherwise, I just like the little boats, so that's pretty cool. That one's not strong. This coat of arms is really neat. I don't know what it is, but it's like solid wood, and whatever this is also pretty neat. So I'm going to mix a couple of these in Photoshop and try to get more detail out of those islands, because after all, it is a map. We do want to have some islands in there. So we open Photoshop, make a file that's 512 by 512, the same size as these images. We're just going to zoom in a little bit and copy them out. So first of all, I'm looking for a good frame generally. What do I like out of these as a frame? Now, this one is an actual frame. This one has a nice look. Yeah, okay, I'm going to take this one for the frame. General background, right? And first thing I'm going to do is actually steal this frame for the bottom as well. So we have a nice square. Just select that, copy it, and bring it down here. We don't have to think too much. After all, it will be sent through stable again. And I'm just going to make a mask with this button and draw some black on it. Just mesh it, meld it, mix it with the rest. That's kind of cool. And for the next one, this doesn't have to be Photoshop, but Photoshop has a couple tools that I like. I'm going to select these parts that I'm going to remove with a really neat AI feature that's built into Photoshop. You can also do it with the clone tool, because I'm just going to remove these, right? So I'm going to go to Edit, Content Aware Fill. I asked you in a poll recently, and 50% of you said you were using Photoshop, so I feel safe enough using these tools. It's rough, but we don't need much more. The rest is going to be fixed up pretty soon. Okay, cool. Now we have a decent frame here. Next, I'm going to steal a couple ships from here, and the island is actually quite defined. It's more defined than here, so I'm going to copy that and paste it over top here. Again, make a mask. And this time I'm going to invert the mask, right? Image, adjustments, invert, or just Control I. And we're going to paint white over it with a soft brush, right? Turn the hardness way down so it's nice and mixed with the rest. I think we may have to adjust the colors of this though, because the ocean is a little bluer in the other one. Oh, there's a ship right there. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, it doesn't really look like a ship. Don't love it. So I'm going to Actually, leave the rest of the island there. And I'm going to turn this opacity down a little. Oh, actually, you know what? I'm going to paste it in again just to see what's there. Turn the opacity down. So I'm going to want one of these ships. There we go. Okay, there's a boat. That's kind of cool. Let's see, where else are there boats? I think we're good on the boats. One nice little boat there. That's nice. Okay, and the rest of the islands. See if those are any good. Yeah, you know. A couple rocks. Don't love that. So those are fine. Now the next items. That's the cool coat of arms. Actually, that's another one. Ooh. What do we have now? That's a mess. We don't want that. So, that one's kind of gamey. I like that. Actually, I'm going to take this one. Okay, copy that one. Paste that in here, and same procedure. I don't like any of the rest, really, except maybe that. So I'm going to mask it, invert the mask, Control-I, and paint white over the coat of arms. That's pretty cool. What's that in the corner? I have no idea. That is a mess. I don't like it. Good. And let's see if any of them have a cool option for whatever object that is up there. Now, despite some of these being cool, this one has like a hand-drawn, hand-illustrated text, which if obviously we can't read because it isn't really a text. I can't really fix that. So I'm going to take this one, which looks like we could also just write something in it with a normal font later. So that one's actually in one that we already have. So I'm just going to duplicate that. We already have that copy in here. So I'm going to give that a mask, invert the mask, and draw white in there. Cool. Okay. That's pretty cool. And now I want to actually change the islands completely because they look a little weird. I want to draw more islands on here. So I'm just going to make a new layer, select the color of this island, and now here's a neat trick. Right? So if I want to change how the islands look, I can really just draw them in. Make sure you use a hard brush. Let's do 100 there. And I want to just change the course of these islands. Make a bigger island here. Nice little cove. So obviously that looks terrible, but it's going to be fixed by Stable Diffusion in just a second with this trick. So I'm going to right click, go to blending options, activate stroke, and then pick the color that in the rest of the map gives it a rim, and now make it the same size. So around 1, right? And now that way, Stable will have an easier job recognizing it as what we want to be an island. Of course, not quite. There's one more step. So we're going to make another layer over that, just fill it with the color black, just a true black. And now we're going to do filter, noise, add noise, and just give it color noise at around this level, like 35 should be fine. Next, you can make that overlay or screen or whatever. Let's do screen. Then hold Alt and click on the layer so it's just on the island we just made. Right? Now play around with the blending mode a little so it just looks like, you know, your island with noise on it. I would suggest screen. You could also do overlay, except that would make it a little too orange. So screen is good. You can just tell that there's noise on it. And if you want, you know, you can add some more details if you have an imagination of where the rocks could be and just try to suggest those here. So if I want like a couple of these rocks that are here, just on here, maybe a little mountain range. Of course, we have no guarantee that this will actually show up where we're putting it, but you know, just give it an easier time of recognizing that that's where we want an island to be. Good. So that's that step. And what we do now is we're going to save a copy of this. Make a folder called iterations, because this will be several. Name it 1, save it as a JPEG. Now we're going to re-import that into Stable. Use the same exact prompt, same sampling steps, Same settings generally. Turn down the denoising strength to maybe 40 or even lower. Let's do 35 and generate. And you can tell it did recognize that we wanted this to be an island. Of course, it could use some more help, but generally our mix worked really well. I mean, look at that style. That is really cool. It understood the frame. Pretty much all the stuff we wanted actually happened. You can't tell that we content aware filled this away. So I'd say that's a success. Now let's keep going. So now we're going to pick the one we like best and maybe some elements from the others, just like we did. I really like the illustration style on this. It's not, as crisp as the rest. It looks more real. This one has a similar style, so that's pretty neat. This one's a little too simplistic, and it kind of split apart our island into different little islands, so don't love that. And this one's just a worse version of the rest. So I think pretty clearly this is our winner. I'm going to copy that, and of course we'll get around to fixing that island. But generally, we put that on top, and it's 100% better than what we had previously, right? It's just great. It did lose our little boat here, so I am going to keep that. I'm going to mask it, and later when we're refining individual parts, I can bring that boat back and make it more clear. Otherwise, it did kind of lose that little green island here, so we can also remove that. That's nice. It might disappear again in the next step. I don't know. But otherwise, we can remove this quite easily. Just pick this, copy, go really quick and dirty. That's what I love about this process. You can just be so flippant about what you do. So transform, flip horizontal. See that joke I accidentally just made? Flip vertical, zoop, go in there. Maybe just stretch it a little bit. Nobody cares. And, just mask away the corners, make them nice and smooth. Now, beware hard edges like this. You really need to make sure your smoothing is good because it will show up. It's very sensitive, Stable Diffusion is, with hard edges like that. But otherwise, that's just fine. And now we save this. And we can go into details. Bring it back in. And now we can, turn the denoising strength down a little, right? Just to 20 or possibly even lower, really just to bring everything together. And you can turn up the sampling steps, just get some more detail in there. Like, let's do 80 and a denoising strength of 2. And you can see, of course, it immediately fixed the frame. It did add weird flowers to this little coat of arms, so that's interesting. Just a little banner, that's kind of fun, I like that. But every time, because we set the denoising strength so low to 0.2, it left the boat, and it just fixed the shading around it because it was a different color. So that's pretty cool. Every time it's a boat, that's just kind of a triangle, but the rocks up here are pretty good, and this looks more threatening, so I kind of like that. Now, what I'm still not getting, which we'll fix in the next step, is this island. That's just not looking like the other island, so I'm not quite sure what we're going to do about that, but we'll see. But otherwise, this is pretty neat. Now I'm going to take this one, which has the best paper, and copy that. Just paste it right over. Quick and dirty. You can also see it has a little more detail because we raised the steps. It's like a little more clear, everything. It's kind of cool. And get that neat coat of arms that we had at the very end with the rocks up there, right? The rocks up there will fix this problem. So we're going to mask that, invert the mask, and just paint white on there. Just added some rocks. So that's cool. I'm just going to use that to fix the corner. And see a little bit if we can kind of make that more clear what's going on up there. That's pretty cool. Now, otherwise, I think we're good. I can see if this is any better. Yeah, I like that more. It has more definition. The boat is also a little better. I enjoy that. And let's see if the island is any better. It's just different. Okay, that's good. This island also has a little bit more rocks and details, so I like that, except for up there. That's good. Generally good. Make the rocks a little more pointy. That's pretty cool. and add some shading and detail there. I like that green island there. And those rocks are just fine. Cool. And now we're going to iterate the island. Now, what I'm thinking is if we can trick it to understand that this is really the exact same thing, we can solve our issue. So the way I'm going to do that is I am going to select our island and select a little bit of this pattern here and try to paste that pattern, define this as a pattern in Photoshop and put it over the island. Let's see if I can even select our island. So in Photoshop, I'm going to use the object selection tool. If you don't have this, you can select it any other way you want, of course. No problem there. It just might take a little longer. So I'm going to do object selection and just select this here. Another AI tool, by the way. So everybody complaining that AI is so new and it's going to wreck everything. Photoshop has integrated AI tools all the time. There's really no issue. And see, it's excellent. So what we don't need, of course, is this stuff. Just going to remove that and this rock here. And otherwise, we have an excellent island selected. I'm just going to, make a new layer and mask it with this. So that way we have it saved somewhere, right? And now I'm going to select a small part of this island and see what we have. So just select a little square and then edit, define pattern. Go OK. And now I'm going to paste that pattern. So where we have the patterns is up here in Photoshop. And you can see I have this here. So now the pattern fill, accidentally did it over there. I'm going to deselect, right? And now pattern fill in here. And it's repetitive, but it kind of gives Stable the right little hint. So I'm hoping that the repetitiveness won't really happen in Stable. It'll just recognize, okay, I'm trying to get that same pattern there. It really is a lot like, I don't know, praying to the AI gods, but usually my gut instincts have been right. So next I'm going to just copy a couple elements with the clone tool. Make sure you're sampling all layers. I just want, a little rock like this over here and rock like this over here. Maybe something like this on the coast over here. And just some more details, something like this. And maybe, actually, I want some ocean in there as well. So it's not too late. If you set the hardness up, I can actually get some ocean in there if I just, I'm just careful about it. So, just a little pond in there, perhaps. No, I hope that wasn't a mistake. Actually, if I do this on a new layer, I can be a little more secure about it. And do the same trick we had earlier, right, with the stroke. So I'm going to give this a stroke, which is the exact color of this coast here. And already I'm trusting it a little more. Okay, good. So let's save this as another iteration. And I'm thinking this will be our final iteration before I upscale. Let's hope. And same settings as before, maybe a little higher because we're really mostly just going for the island. And I can already crop because I like the rest. I'm really just going to crop. Hold shift while you're scaling down. Oops. Hold shift while you're scaling down and just select your island. Very cool. This is pretty much what I'd hoped for. Now, what I really like is that two of the options gave me a little greenery. So this one has some trees, which I love. It did turn this into a boat, but, I don't really mind. That's okay. And a big black rock, that's a significant element on a map, so that's pretty cool. And it totally understood that I wanted a lake there, so I respect that. Now here, this does possibly fit the style a little bit better, so I don't know if that's something I want, but I'm going to go for the one I like first, just from a gut feeling, these trees. I'm just going to copy and paste that and make sure it's the top layer. Turn the opacity down a little bit, and as usual, just do the classic thing. Now, some of you may be thinking, hey, but Albert, there are some plugins that work directly in Photoshop. I haven't actually found one that works locally well enough on my system, and I really do like the control I have in here. I'm a guy of habit too, so I might just totally be wrong about this, but just the copying and really setting all these settings in here and then consciously picking something, bringing it into Photoshop, right? I have all my options here, and then just masking. I don't really think a Photoshop plugin, quite as they are now, will save me a ton of time while also keeping that creativity that I like about it. So not quite there yet. But if you know of something that doesn't have any of the issues I just talked about, let me know. Of course, I want to try this out. So we've brought it in. I'm just going to mask that real quick. And it's promising. I like that. I do like the little boat down there. It did change this island significantly. So I think we're going to have to remove that out of there. But generally, I'm pretty happy with that. Now, it is a little softer somehow. So I'm going to try to adjust maybe the colors a little bit. Just give it some curves, or actually the curves here. And I'm going to go for color. So I'm going to set my curves. This is a good little trick to adjust color to match something. Set it to one color, go to channels, set it to that color as well. And now you see it in black and white. And you can tell, my colors are a little different. Make sure your curves are just on the thing you want to edit. And you can tell I just try to match it color by color. Go to green. Now it's a little brighter, so I try to bring the contrast down. These are just tiny little edits, right? I don't want to change it too much. And blue, it's a little crisper, the other ones. So I'm just going to try to up that contrast a little bit, make it match. Now, I hope it did something. Yes, it did. Just going to try to adjust it a little by eye now. And I'm just going to paint a little closer to the island to make sure my ocean still matches, right? There's a lot of ocean from this new island that just lost a little bit of clarity. So I'm going to go a little closer to it. Now, one more important thing. Obviously, this text is complete nonsense, and AIs can't fix it. So we're going to remove that and replace it with some actual text. And, I'm just going to remove these weird little swirls. I don't love those. So in the next step, I like it as it is. I'm going to flatten this image, right? So I'm just going to bring everything together. So I select all my layers, merge layers, and now I can do the next step. So, to remove these swirls, I can just clone stamp over them, make sure I have a softer brush than the one I've been using. It's pretty easy. I just kind of select a spot, go over there, go over there, go over there, occasionally pick a new spot. Real easy. I don't know what it tried stylistically there, but it did not work. Now, of course, I'm going to have to remove the text. I'm going to use a mixture of clone stamp and content-aware fill to do that. And you've seen me do that, right? So it's quite simple. I'm going to use clone stamp for this, just like I did with the swirls. So that text is gone. There's some text over here that says something like pardas. I have no idea what that is. Don't need it. Just carefully pick the right color. Yep. Now this one. This one's kind of annoying because it kind of lightened the water as well. It's like painted into it. So I don't love that. We might have to iterate again over that. Now these, I might use content-aware fill. So I just select that as closely to the text as possible because I do like the different shading, right? I do appreciate that it's a little lighter where the text is. I just can't read the text because it's complete gibberish. That should be fine because it's going to upscale with AI anyway. That's decent. Decent enough. Now this one, same difference. Now these turned out pretty badly. I'm going to blur this layer actually and paint over it completely. So that didn't quite work out. I'm just going to select this color here and paint right over it. And give it some noise, again with the same trick. So I'm just going to fill it with black, add some noise, screen, and place it over there, and that's a good color right there. Excellent, so now we're completely text-free. And now we're going to put this through an upscaler. That should also solve the rest of the problems that we have. So I'm just going to save it again as iteration number 4. Very few iterations for work like this usually, so that's pretty cool. And now we're going to go into extras. So I am using the Real ESR GAN to upscale this. If you don't have it in your installation, you can just find a different option to upscale, right? There are plenty of even online AI upscalers that should do what this does. So I'm going to resize it to the max, like or around 4. This should be pretty quick. And there we go. Now it's a little crispy, but it's good for our next step. So we're going to make a new file that is 4 times as large, so 2048 by 2048, paste it in there. Excellent. So now we're going to save this as our next iteration. Of course, this image is going to be much bigger. No problem, no difference really. And we're going to go through it piece by piece to fix these artifacts that got a little weird. These like the coat of arms and everything. So we're going to bring that in here. Crop it as we learned. And now we're going to adjust the prompt. This is going to be a little difficult because we have to describe what this is. So I've been calling it a coat of arms, and that should work because we just have to roughly describe it, right? We're going to put the denoising strength low enough that it shouldn't change it too much. So fantasy parchment should be fine. Fantasy parchment coat of arms. Let's do royal coat of arms. Cut wood, just kind of describe what it is. Crosshatch, shading. Let's do hand drawn, what a hand drawing of a fantasy coat of arms. And leave words, text, frame, and photograph. We don't need the continents anymore. That's not relevant. And just see what happens. Wow, I was actually not expecting it to do quite as well. It pretty much fixed exactly what we wanted. So before, if we look here, it was kind of just a mess of different stuff, right? So like we don't know what this is. It's just kind of weird. And now it has clear carvings in it. It looks more like wood, but that's because I told it to. And I like that. This is still kind of a mess. That one's cool. That one's a mess. That one's okay, but looks a little childish. It's too simple. And that one's also just a different look. But I actually prefer this one. This is the most clear. This is the most like something that someone would actually paint. So we're going to copy that, and paste it in here, and put it over, adjust the size. And that's the good part. If we send parts of an image through Stable, it's going to come out in a good resolution, right? This is 512 by 512 pixels. So it comes out in the upscaled resolution already. So the resolution we had for the whole image is now just for parts of it, which it was obviously before too, but we didn't do very many parts. So this is the final little step here. And now, as usual, we mask and just kind of roughly paint around it. So the ocean texture is actually pretty neat too, but I think in the rest of the image, the ocean is fine. We're not going to go through that again step by step. Just remove this little weirdness that it loves putting in there. And then we pick out some other parts that didn't get upscaled so well. Because generally, it looks okay. Depending on how much time we want to spend with this, we can, of course, go through it step by step. Do every single rock if we feel like it, right? But next I'm going to do this thing, and I think we might be able to get away with using the same exact prompt, because it is also kind of a coat of arms, right? I think if we just leave that, it should be fine. Royal coat of arms. Let's see if we can give it some more detail. I mean, there's like green stuff on it that doesn't make sense yet, but it would be kind of cool if this was like, I don't know, if I'm making a map from some kind of fantasy empire that is exploring a tropical area, then they might decorate their map title, which is what I'm imagining here, with some leaves or stuff, right? So I can do coat of arms with leaves and fruit, right? Let's see what happens if I do that. Denoise and strength at 0.4 was perfect, just perfect. And again, wow, stable's on point today. This is really cool. So I actually got my fruit here. It did recognize some fruit in these rounded corners here. Got some leaves here. I like that. They don't look very tropical. There's some fruit here. Generally, this is really cool. It still looks a little... I don't know if I love it quite yet. I'm going to run it through again, but I'm going to pick my favorite from these. So let's do this one and do with leaves and no grapes is here. Let's do pomegranates with orchid leaves and pomegranates and flowers and see what happens. That didn't work because it didn't see any pomegranates, right? It makes sense. So I'm kind of bent on the fruit now. So if you'll bear with me, I'm going to copy this original image, make a new Photoshop file. Perfect. Paste that in there, and I'm going to draw some pomegranates in here where I want them. So, you know, really just very basic. I just pick a color. Color is kind of important, right? Because it doesn't handle color changes in image to image too well. And I'm going to put just some pomegranates and fruit here. Make sure it's on a different layer because then you can do a little trick that I'm about to show you. That's good. And some orchid leaves. So I'm just going to go a little like light purple here. Do another layer and just put a couple flowers in there. Make it a little less symmetric too, you know. That's good. And now if I put some blending options onto these layers, you know, I can make them a little more 3D, you know, just some bevel and emboss, just a little bit to give it something to work with because it really does need a little shading to work with usually. Give it some tip. These are round, so I'm going to make sure to bevel them like this. And again, you know, just give it some noise. Make some noise. Put these in a folder. Make sure the noise is just on them. Screen it. Maybe turn down the screen a little bit. Good. Okay, now we're going to open another iteration folder because I'm so obsessed with pomegranates suddenly. And call this just the title board. Let's do that. Okay. Put that in here. And now it should do it. If I turn up the denoising thing to, let's do 0.5. Give it a little more freedom. Orchids, not leaves, with leaves and orchids, pomegranates, and flowers. A lot of ands in there. Probably not the best idea, but it'll do its job. I trust Stable. Don't you love it when you do something really hacky and it works? That's really neat. I think it has a little too much freedom, so I'm going to run it through again. But generally, we're almost where I want it to be. So I'm going to change pomegranates to fruits, leaves, orchids, and fruits and flowers, and then we'll go on to the next. Man, so many great options to choose from. Every one was better than the last. So this is cool. This is cool. Which one fits our style the best? This is kind of fruity. The flowers lost a little bit. So this one has an actual frame. That's kind of cool. This one has good shading. I'm going to take this one and just run it through again for a little bit more detail. Denoising strength is good where it is. Maybe turn it down a little so it doesn't change too much. Yeah. Okay. I think I'm going to take these because the flowers are better. This one here, paste it in, and then put some wood back because it messed up the middle. So we go to our original map to stop messing about with pomegranates. And put that in there. As per usual, we mask. Make sure to make it soft because I did change that. It did lose a lot of the ocean and the background because I didn't, I focused my prompt on something else entirely. So make sure you really cut it out well. It does look very clean now, so I don't love that. The style is pretty different. I think we're going to do some post-processing on this whole thing in the end. Really, age it up again. And as I said, I'm going to bring this back. Now, it's funny if you think about it, because if someone illustrated this, they wouldn't, make the wood look a little broken, I think. Tell me I'm wrong if you're a cartographer, but I don't know. That's very much a stable invention there, I think. But okay. Good. Now, some final things. I think I am going to clean up this a little bit. It did, the islands, I mean, it did make those a little rough. So I'm going to go back in here, bring up an old island, my big one here, crop in. Now it's going to be kind of tricky to do parts of it, right? Because I want the island to look like one piece. So I have to pick my prompts carefully. Make sure it looks close enough to the old one. So I'm going to go into my output folder here, or actually look at my old video. And get my old prompt back. So what we do, fantasy parchment map of magical islands, and then it actually cut off a little bit at the end. Seafaring, I think I had pirate ships and colorful. I remember we did that. And this was just the old continents. That really doesn't matter, except like I can leave the negative prompt I had in there. That's okay. Now let's do magical islands. That's fine. Turn down the denoising strength. 0.3 might be a little too much. Actually, let's do 25. And just magical islands with rocks so it doesn't mess up my rocks. Pirate ships is in there. Okay, let's see what happens. Okay, pretty cool. It actually made the ship a little better too in most of these. So I'm going to go for land right now. I'm looking for good land. This is a really sad little island if you think about it. It doesn't have very much greenery. So let's pick the one with the most interesting terrain. This one has a couple interesting rocks up there, and the rock looks really good. So I'm going to take this one and take a ship from elsewhere. Did it change my island too much? No, it didn't. Stable is loyal. Mask it. Leave that little part up there. That's pretty cool. Yeah, and see, now it's much higher definition. If you compare it to up there, it looks much better. And now I'm going to find my little boat. I'm going to do that in a separate step. Let's do the islands first. Just going to move it up, do the same thing. Okay, now it's important we don't switch up styles. So let's find something that looks similar to this, kind of bushy little bushes. If it did anything like that. Yeah, kind of this, actually. That one's good too. Yeah, this is the one that's closest. So I think we're best off, for our general image, general quality of image to stick with that. And, you know, align it. Mask. If you click Alt on your mask, you can see how it looks, or Alt-click rather, if you Alt-click your mask. It's pretty good. The ship is a little better. Now, of course, this is all a cartographer's total nightmare because a map would never be this imprecise if you think about it. So this is only for fantasy purposes. Please don't try to make any actual maps with this technique. Maybe for a kid's birthday party. Let's do that. Which is actually a really cool use case. Imagine if your parent or guardian made you a map of your home like this, if you have a little yard or something, and they used this technique to map it all out and make it look like a pirate map. I would love that. Imagine. Okay, again, we look for the bushy bushes. That's pretty cool. Let's do this. There's some kind of interesting ridge or river here. That's pretty neat. Put this here. It's funny how my technique really is a lot of just pattern matching, just looking at images and trying to figure out where they belong. Kindergarten trained me well. Okay. And again, happy little masks. Paint that over. Get back that good crispy ocean that we got from upscaling. Something's still a little off. I think I may have stretched it a little bit or something. I don't know what's happening here. Interesting. Yeah, it just made my edge here a little funky. But otherwise, just going to bring back my little ocean here. Make sure the ocean remains nicely colored. Okay. And now just this little area here and up here. Cool. Now it really made it even more barren, this poor island. That's kind of cool though. Like I can label this rock and make it something significant. There's letters in there. I told you not to use words. There's a little river. I like this one. This is the coolest. The ocean looks a little different though. Let's copy this one and see what happens. See, just compare it to what we had earlier. You know, it does give it a little bit of perspective, but you know, old-time cartographers didn't really care all that much about perspective. They also had some artistic merit, unlike today's silly, precise cartographers. So I appreciate that. It gives it a little more dynamic feel. Don't mind that at all. And just mask it. And now you see that the island kind of goes that way. So that's really cool. Now what do? I am going to make this boat more clear because I really like it there. It just, you know, doesn't look clearly like a boat enough for me. So I'm going to save this actually. So I use the right image. I'm going to do 6. Still only 6 iterations. So that's really cool. I'm going to give it some more freedom. Fantasy parchment map. Okay, parchment illustration of a magical pirate ship in the ocean. Pirate ship in the ocean. Pirate sailing ship in the ocean. Sea waves, cartography, crosshatch, seafaring, colorful. Okay, good. And let's give that some more detail. You know, islands can get away with lower sampling, but this is important. I want this. And the denoising strength, you know, go nuts, stable. I like the direction, but otherwise, you know, make a cool sailboat. I don't care. Now this one is cool. That's the most pirate shippy of it. but this one fits the style most, I think. This is the easiest to integrate. So let's see if I can actually integrate this, or if it looks too different. I think we're in luck. So let's do that. And mask it in there. I did make the rocks weird. But otherwise, that's pretty cool. Okay, that's pretty neat. And now let's get on that compass rose. I wonder where I'm going to put it, honestly. There isn't that much space. But if we want, I can replace this rock here, down here, with the compass rose. The way I'm going to do that, though, is I'm just going to go to text to image, put the prompt in, leave all that. Yeah, I don't need the continents anymore. And fantasy parchment compass. I'm not going to call it a compass rose because Stable has problems with like phrases that or words that are comprised of separate words. Compass on a map. Map on a map. Okay. Let's do 20 sampling steps just to see what it gets us. Interesting. Okay, well, actually, I'm going to go for a different approach. I'm going to go to image and actually give it one of our old images. So go into your Stable Diffusion output folder, wherever that may be, and go into image and find one of our old maps with a compass rose in it. So actually text to image. And steal it, right? So these older ones have something of a compass rose. Boy, there were some really cool options in there too. That one's kind of cool. Let's take that one and try to fix it, right? So I'm going to take that one. Where did I want it? I wanted that one. Yeah, perfect. Good. Even the right corner. And tell it fantasy parchment compass rose. Okay, yeah. Let's see what happens with a denoising strength of 0.5. I like how leaving the colorful made this one colorful. There's some cool ones here. We're going to find one that kind of matches our style. This is a kind of cool one. This is a little too clean, I think, for our pirate who made the other ones. So I'm going to copy this one, put it in here, see if it matches. Yeah, kinda. You know, we're not Bernini here. Was a painter too. So we're going to do this and select the subject of this in Photoshop, or select it however you want and hope. Kinda, yeah, okay, good. So we're going to mask that and put that in the corner here. Really just filling this map with all kinds of stuff. Okay, and maybe give it a little bit of a drop shadow. Just a tiny bit. Make it match the other shadows, right? So just do this. Okay. And save this as an iteration. You know, and just have that integrated in there. Give it a little space around so you have room to mask. And turn down the denoising strength a little. We do like our compass, so we don't want it changing around too much. Parchment compass rose on a map in the ocean. Okay, everything is good. Nice. It really integrated that well into the style, I think. Did mess up the corners a little bit, but you know, I'm going to be happy with this, I think. Yeah, let's pick the first one. That's kind of the best one. Yeah, I did the shading so much closer to the original. I love that. This is really cool. Really got the colors and everything. You know, sometimes it does the colors well and sometimes it doesn't. Usually it doesn't. So I'm always happy when I get what I want from Stable. Just got to be grateful to the AIs for understanding our wishes today. Some islands there. It's kind of weird. Good. And you know what? Now I'm just going to do this corner and then I'll be happy to add text. And I'm going to show you how to do that. There's not much of a trick to it, but you just need to know some things. Parchment, map. Look for little bushes and rocks again. Here's the rocks. That's the right style. It even has a little coastline still. Okay, wonderful. Yeah, that looks good. And align it. Mask. Do I like the rock more there? That's fine. It doesn't really matter. That rock looks equally great in both iterations, I think. Yeah, that's just fine. Okay, good. Now that we fixed that, I'm going to add some text here. This is it for now. I'm going to put a final little aging layer on top in the end, but for now, let's put some text in. And for that, I have picked out some fonts for you. So I'm going to put the link to those in the description. They're both free to use, even commercially, I think. So that's pretty cool. If for some reason you'd want to sell a map like this. One of them is Adine Kernberg. So I'm just going to, oh, it already gave me that. Haha. Write you some. So this is kind of a fancy script font, right? That's kind of neat. I like that. I think it matches our map look very well. Someone inked over the illustration that our pirate made. Or, you know, a different option is Crimson. Hold on. Sorry, Chopin script. And it's this. It's just a little thicker. It's kind of similar to the other one. So I actually like the thin one. I don't want anybody reading my map too much. This is mostly decorative. So I'm going to go with this one. So what do we call this? I was thinking this part over here is like the Royal Coat of Arms, literally. So it says like by order of His Majesty so-and-so. And up here is the title, right? So these are, let's say, the Isles, the Stable Isles. We can just call them the Stable Isles. Stable Isles. That's kind of cool. Map of the Stable Isles. Let's do map of the Stable Isles. Excellent. That's cool. That really works. And now do the credit for the cartographer. So created by the explorer. Let's do Captain Diffuse. Created by the explorer Captain Diffuse by the order of His Island Majesty. Let's do it that so, you know, we keep the colonialism to a minimum. We don't know. This could be a local leader who ordered this cartography of His Island Majesty. We don't name him because it's so obvious. It's so obvious who it is because of their significant achievements. Excellent. And now we can name some areas. So let's do that real quick. I'm just going to copy my text. This is a little cove here. So let's just go. I have some things here. Well, I don't know what a lagoon is, but this is the Sapphire Lagoon. Let's, they couldn't really do that, huh? They couldn't really go for darker. I'm going to need some reference. So let's look at some maps. Old maps. They did just write into there. Yeah, it's a little thicker font. So I guess we could switch our font up. Go to Chopin, make it a little thicker. And there we go. Suddenly we can read it. Excellent. This is Desperation Isle. Because it's, you know, it's so just clinging on by a little thread there. So that's why it's called that. And of course we need Blackbeard here somewhere. Blackbeard's Bay. Although, is this a lagoon? This is a lagoon, isn't it? It's like a little island. I have no idea. And Blackbeard's Bay is over here. That's where he puts all his treasure. There's a fly attacking me. And at the very bottom, just here, let's put Canary Cape. Canary Cape. Excellent. Good. So, you know, you can fill this out with anything you want. This one seems significant, so I would name that somehow. And otherwise, this is a pretty cool map. So on a final little level, we could, you know, edit the colors. We could put a little color lookup table here, or, you know, just do what you would do with a photo, right? Just edit it a little bit. You can increase the contrast a little bit. You could, so let's put all this in a folder or a smart object even. You know, now that this is a smart object, we can add some stuff, right? We can add a couple of filters. You know, if we want, you know, we could do really intense stuff. Just add like an oil paint filter on top of that, which doesn't really make sense. So I would just use that for a very slight effect. Just a little, you know, to bring everything together. I don't want it to look like an oil painting, obviously. The lighting, I think, you know, adds to the crinkliness of the effect, right? So of the paper, right? It will look like a photo of an actual map, which is kind of cool. You know, unless you're going to print it out, that could help the effect. But of course, do very, very, very little of this. So do 0.1. I can't do that. Okay, 0.1. Cleanliness of that. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to duplicate this and add the effect to that, because then we can control it a little bit, you know. Kind of a large scale if we want. You know, just play around with some effects like this. Bristle detail seems to make it more intense. So that's kind of cool, right? You can just turn the opacity down on that if you want. Just add a little bit. You can also mask through it, of course. You know, if you want your text to be more visible, turn the opacity down on that, of course, so you can have the effect still readable. You know, that really adds a little bit of texture to it, makes it look more like a map, all kinds of stuff like that. And now with the techniques you've learned here, you can do all kinds of stuff, right? So I showed you briefly when I shaped this island, how you can make your own island shape if you already have a plan, if you're like writing a fantasy book or something and know what your land looks like, you can just paint that right at the beginning. What I would suggest though is that you still start with a text to image generated map, because that will give you a general look for the map. Like I did, right? Then you pick the color of what the land looks like in that generated map and paint it, paint your shape into it. You know, remove whatever land masses you don't like in that generated image. Because if you start from zero, I tried that for you, and it's not as good as when you start with a pre-made text-to-image map, right? So I tried iterating a little bit for that, and you know, I started with something like this, very simple map, and it just didn't end up looking like a good map in the end. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. Here, like it just doesn't have as much detail as what we have here. It looks like something like this, kind of messed up, not really great. So with this method, I think you'll get further. Even now, if I wanted to have a totally different look, I could just, you know, clone tool away this island and draw a new one in, and then go back and iterate through that and make it look like this. So I hope you have tons of fun. This is really a fun use case of Stable Diffusion that I haven't seen many others try. So I hope I contributed something today, and I hope you have tons of fun and make something even better in Stable Diffusion. If you enjoyed this video, I would love for you to leave a subscription, like this video, comment with suggestions for future videos, and thank you so much for supporting me in the way you already have. I've reached almost 7,500 subscribers in just a couple weeks. So I'm super, super grateful for that. I'm Albert Bosazan, and I hope to see you next time.